Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dive in.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to be talking about Abu Huraira,
Oh, very
the
interesting.
companion of the Prophet Muhammad, who played, you can't overstate it, a monumental role in preserving the Hadith. You know, those sayings and actions of the Prophet.
Yeah, those are so important.
Absolutely. It's hard to imagine, understanding Islam without the Hadith, right?
Completely.
So what we're going to do today is we're going beyond just, a surface level understanding.
Okay.
We're not just going to list the hadith he narrated, but we're going to look at his personal journey,
I see.
the challenges he faced, and how he became such a prolific narrator. And our main source for this exploration is a lecture by Dr. Omar Suleiman
Okay.
titled Abu Huraira, the Preserver of Hadith. And it's one of those lectures I was listening to it the other day, and I was like, wow, I never really thought about it this way.
Interesting.
And it's really about understanding the human element,
Yeah.
behind the transmission of hadith. Because sometimes I think we forget
Mm-hmm.
that it wasn't, some kind of robotic process. It was actual people like Abu Huraira
Right.
who dedicated their lives to this,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Abu Huraira, he wasn't born, into a family of scholars or even practicing Muslims. He was from the Dos tribe. And they were known for being, shall we say, not very pious.
Okay, so that's pretty interesting.
Right. That's a huge contrast to, who he became, right?
Yeah, it's a complete transformation.
Total transformation. And here's another crazy thing. He was brought to Medina by Tufail,
Okay.
who was the chief of the Dos tribe, who initially tried to prevent people from even hearing the prophet's message.
Oh, wow.
So the very person who was like, no, Islam's not for us, brings the guy who becomes one of the most important transmitters.
That's a real twist of fate.
Right. Talk about irony. And it doesn't stop there. His own mother, Maimuna, resisted Islam. Can you imagine, wanting to share your faith with your mother? And she's just like, no.
Yeah, that must have been so difficult for him.
Right. And so he goes to the Prophet Muhammad himself.
He did.
And asks him to pray for her guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Soon after, she embraces Islam.
Really? That's amazing.
Right. It's like, that prayer, the Prophet's prayer, it had such an impact.
Yeah. It shows you the power of prayer and also the prophet's compassion.
Yes. He didn't force anyone.
Right.
It was all about love and understanding.
Exactly.
Okay, so now we get to Medina, right?
Yeah.
Life isn't exactly easy for Abu Huraira, especially when he's with the Asufa.
Asufa.
So they were the OG students living in the Prophet's mosque,
Okay.
super dedicated, but really poor.
Oh, I see.
And Abu Huraira, he's facing extreme poverty during this period.
Oh, wow.
So dedicated to learning, but sometimes he's so hungry, he's tying stones to his stomach
Oh, my gosh.
to ease the hunger pains.
That's just heartbreaking, but also inspiring.
Right. It shows you how much he valued knowledge.
It does. He could have given up, but he didn't.
Exactly. Okay, and here's where we get to one of those stories. It's just wow.
Okay.
The miraculous pitcher of milk.
Oh, I've heard of this.
So Abu Huraira, he's starving, right? And a prophet gets a gift of milk.
Okay.
What do you think happens next?
Well, knowing the prophet, I'm guessing he didn't keep it all to himself.
Exactly. He tells Abu Huraira to call all the people of Asufa to share it.
Wow.
Right. Imagine you're starving and you're told to share this precious food.
Yeah, that would be so hard.
But Abu Huraira, he obeys. And here's the crazy part.
What?
The milk never runs out.
No way.
Yes. Everyone drinks, and there's still more.
That's amazing. A true miracle.
Right. And it shows you the prophet's generosity. He put everyone else's needs before his own.
Absolutely. A true leader.
And you know what's even more amazing?
What's that?
The prophet doesn't even give Abu Huraira any milk until everyone else has had their fill.
Wow.
It just shows you how much he cared.
Yeah. It's a powerful lesson in compassion.
Okay, so we've got this amazing story. But it raises another question.
What's that?
How did Abu Huraira memorize so many hadith?
Right. Because he wasn't always with the prophet.
Right, exactly. He had other duties and he was, struggling with poverty.
Yeah.
So some scholars say he had this incredible memory, divinely bestowed.
Oh, interesting.
Right. And there's even a story where Abu Huraira complains to the prophet about forgetting some teachings. And the prophet gives him his cloak, almost like, a blessing for better memory.
His cloak. Really?
Yeah. It sounds almost mythical, right?
It does, but I guess it symbolizes that special bond between them.
Yes. And the importance of preserving the teachings.
Right. But it couldn't just be the cloak, right? There had to be something about his approach to learning, too.
I think so too. He didn't just passively listen, right? He
Yeah.
engaged with the material.
Oh, I see.
He would ask questions, like really trying to understand.
So it was about really internalizing the teachings, not just memorizing words.
Exactly. It was about getting to the deeper meaning.
That makes sense.
So you've got this combination of factors, the love for learning, the close bond with the prophet, maybe a divine gift, and then his own system for absorbing knowledge. It all came together to make him this amazing figure.
Fascinating.
Right. And he didn't just keep this knowledge to himself.
Oh, of course not.
He taught it, he shared it, made sure it reached as many people as possible.
Yeah, he was more than just a recorder. He was a teacher.
Right. He really wanted people to understand and live by these teachings.
And he did that in so many ways, right? From teaching in the mosque to being a governor later on.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other part of his life.
He shows he wasn't just a scholar in an ivory tower. He was a man of action.
Exactly. He took his knowledge and put it into practice. And that's what made him so influential.
It's inspiring.
It really is. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and dive into more of Abu Huraira's story. All right, we're back. And we're continuing our deep dive into the life of Abu Huraira.
And I think it's important to remember, he didn't just live through peaceful times.
Oh, yeah, right. Things got pretty intense.
Yeah. After Caliph Uthman was assassinated, there was a lot of turmoil, conflict.
Yeah, the early Muslim community really faced some challenges.
And you can imagine, for someone like Abu Huraira,
Right.
who had witnessed the Prophet's emphasis on peace and brotherhood.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, to see that unity kind of fracturing.
It must have been really unsettling.
Yeah, totally. So what did he do? How did he respond to all this?
Well, instead of getting caught up in the politics of it all, he focused on knowledge,
Interesting.
on the Prophet's legacy.
Okay.
And there's this amazing story.
Okay.
He goes to the marketplace and announces that the inheritance of the Prophet is being distributed.
Oh, wow.
Right. So everyone thinks it's material wealth.
Mm-hmm.
But when they get to the mosque,
Yeah.
it's circles of, Quranic study, Hadith narration.
That is so cool.
Right. It's he's saying, look, the real treasure is here.
Forget about power struggles.
Exactly.
Wow, I never thought about it that way.
It's pretty powerful.
It is. But, okay, even with all this, his massive amount of narrations,
Right.
I mean, some people were skeptical.
Yeah, of course. How could one person have memorized so much, right?
Exactly. They thought maybe he was exaggerating or even fabricating things.
Yeah, understandable.
So how do we know his narrations are accurate?
Well, this is where the system of Hadith verification comes in. It wasn't just random people writing things down.
Right.
The scholars were extremely careful.
Okay.
They looked at the chain of narrators, checked for consistency, for reliability.
So a whole investigation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They wanted to make sure there was no bias, no fabrication.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah. And with Abu Huraira, because he had so many narrations, the scrutiny was even higher.
Okay.
But you know what?
Yeah.
His narrations have stood the test of time.
Really?
Yeah, they're considered some of the most authentic.
That's amazing.
It is. It really shows the rigor of that process.
Yeah, it does. Okay, but even then, some people still weren't convinced. They wanted proof.
Right.
And this is where Caliph Umar comes in.
Oh. Wait.
So Umar, decades after the Prophet's death, he wanted to test Abu Huraira.
Really? How did he do that?
He had people secretly record everything Abu Huraira narrated for a whole day.
Wow, a whole day.
Then a year later,
Yeah.
he asked Abu Huraira to repeat it all.
Oh my gosh, talk about pressure.
Right. And guess what?
What?
Abu Huraira got everything right.
No way.
Yes. Perfectly. Not a single mistake.
That's incredible.
I know. It's the ultimate memory test.
It is. And it just proves his credibility was undeniable.
Totally. So we see this combination of rigorous testing and meticulous verification really solidifies his position as a reliable source.
Exactly. It shows how seriously they took knowledge preservation.
Yeah, for sure. But amidst all this talk about memory and verification,
Yeah.
we can't forget that Abu Huraira wasn't just a recorder.
Right.
He was a scholar himself.
Of course.
He had his own insights.
They did.
He would add his own commentary, you know?
Make it more accessible.
Yeah. And make it relevant to his audience.
He was bridging that gap between the prophet's time and his own.
Exactly. And it's amazing because he did all this while living a really simple life.
Yeah, he never sought wealth or status.
Even when he became governor.
Right.
He stayed true to his values.
To humility, to compassion.
Yeah. There are all these stories about his generosity, his fair judgments. He even gave most of his earnings to charity.
Wow.
Right. Like he truly lived what he preached.
It's a powerful example.
It is. And even with all his responsibilities, he never lost that playful side.
Especially with children.
Yes. He saw them as the future, you know? And he loved teaching them, like through games and stories.
Right, making it fun and engaging.
Exactly. It's a reminder that education can happen anywhere, anytime.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's amazing, like, you know, he could be having these deep scholarly discussions and then turn around and be playing games with kids.
Right, like he was so well-rounded.
Totally. But we can't forget, at the heart of it all, he was a man of deep faith.
Oh, absolutely.
His dedication to the Hadith, it came from that love for the Prophet. Right?
Yeah, and his belief in Islam.
Exactly. And as he got older, that faith, it just, like, shone even brighter.
It's true. Like, there are these stories about his final days where he's expressing this longing to meet his creator.
Wow, yeah, I've heard about that. But it wasn't out of fear, right?
No, not at all.
It was more like he was just ready.
Yeah, like a deep desire to be reunited with, you know, the source of his faith.
That's beautiful.
It is. There's this one narration. It's so powerful.
What is it?
He says, Allah, I would love to meet you. So love to meet me.
Wow.
Right? Like, it just shows you the depth of his faith.
It does. And even on his deathbed, he's still emphasizing knowledge, closeness to Allah.
He was. He told people, like, don't make a big deal about my death. Just, you know, let me go meet my Lord.
Wow. That's, like, so humbling.
It is. It shows you where his priorities were. This life, it's just temporary, right?
Yeah, it puts things in perspective.
It does. Like, even Abu Huraira, with all his knowledge, his accomplishments, he knew that true fulfillment, it's about seeking the divine.
Absolutely. Worldly things, they just don't compare.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked about his life, his faith, but we can't forget about his legacy.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
Right. Like, he didn't just preserve knowledge, he passed it on.
Exactly. He had so many students who became prominent scholars themselves.
Yeah, it's like this chain of transmission, right?
It is. Going all the way back to the Prophet.
That's incredible.
Right.
And it's all thanks to people like Abu Huraira.
Who dedicated their lives to this.
It's really inspiring. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm just struck by, like, how multifaceted he was.
He was.
A scholar, teacher, leader, man of faith.
And so down to earth, you know?
Right. He could do it all. It makes you wonder, like, what would it be like to actually talk to him?
I know, right? To hear his stories, his insights firsthand.
It would be amazing. And maybe that's something we can all think about, you know,
Yeah.
as we continue to learn and explore.
What would you ask Abu Huraira if you had the chance?
Exactly. What question would you ask? What wisdom would you seek? We'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and peace be upon you.